Now, to another story of prime interest tonight. John Hinckley, the man who attempted to assassinate President Reagan back in 1981, has been granted his freedom by a judge. Miranda Kahn has more.
JD, a federal judge ruled today John Hinckley Jr. should be released, citing he no longer poses a danger to himself or to others. Here's a look back at the day President Ronald Reagan was shot in his own words.
I heard a noise and we came out of the hotel. And I thought it was firecrackers. And the next thing I knew, one of the Secret Service agents behind me just seized me here by the waist and plunged me head first into the limo. And I had a handful of bright red frothy blood.
It was 35 years ago this man, John Hinckley Jr., tried to assassinate one of America's most beloved presidents.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
Hinckley shot Reagan and 3 others outside the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. back in March of 1981. It was later revealed he did it to impress a then 19-year-old Jodie Foster, an actress whom he had stalked.
I felt very shocked, very frightened.
Hinckley was taken into custody and was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, a U.S. district judge says Hinckley no longer poses a threat to himself or others and should be a free man, something that doesn't sit well with the current Republican presidential nominee.
John Hinckley should not have been free.
But what would President Ronald Reagan say if he were alive today?
You forgive John Hinckley?
Yes, I found out he wasn't thinking on all on all cylinders.
And President Reagan said that he prayed for Hinckley to heal. Hinckley had long suffered from clinical depression and obsessive tendencies. According to experts, he's been in remission for more than 20 years. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute issued a statement today disapproving of the judge's decision, saying this: John Hinckley is responsible for the shooting of President Reagan and 3 other brave men. One died 2 years ago from the wounds he received. Contrary to the judge's decision, we believe John Hinckley is still a threat to others, and we strongly oppose his release. Hinckley will be released from a psychiatric facility August 5th. From there, he will be allowed to live with his 90-year-old mother in Williamsburg, Virginia. JD, back to you.
Thanks, Miranda. This reminder, we will be taking your calls over the next hour at 1-877-Newsmax. That's 1-877-639-7629. For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined via phone by the son of Ronald Reagan, political commentator Michael Reagan. Michael, the author of the book, Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. As always, you can find and follow Michael on Twitter. His handle, @TwitterWorld. Michael, thanks for your time tonight. And I'm sorry, at Reagan World. I know there's a world of Twitter, but it's at Reagan World. Now that I've corrected that, let me just go back so there's no misunderstanding. The Ronald Reagan Foundation statement released today, just want to go through it once more. John Hinckley is responsible for the shooting of President Reagan and 3 other brave men. One died 2 years ago from the wounds he received. Contrary to the judge's decision, we believe John Hinckley is still a threat to others, and we strongly oppose his release. Let me ask you, Michael, do you believe your dad would agree with the release the foundation offered today or not? And if not, why not?
I don't think he would agree with the foundation. I write in my book, Lessons My Father Taught Me. One of the lessons was about forgiveness. And I actually tell the story of my father and John Hinckley and how my father, not only could say in the Lord's Prayer, but lived the Lord's Prayer because of his forgiveness of John Hinckley. In fact, so much so, and I write in my book, that he wanted to see and visit John Hinckley to tell that to him himself. But his doctors would not allow him to visit John Hinckley. And when the judge allowed John Hinckley, or will allow John Hinckley, to leave on August 5th, remember, there's parameters. He can not be in touch with any member of the Reagan family or any descendants of the Reagan family. He's got to be with his mother. There's parameters of where he can go and what he can do. I have no feeling of for my family or myself that something terrible is going to happen to us because of John Hinckley. That's something else people need to remember. That when John Hinckley shot my father and the others, the laws were completely different than what they are today. He was convicted under the laws of the 1980s and what have you. Today, you would not be, in fact, going free. Today, you would be in jail for the remainder of your life because they changed those laws after John Hinckley was found guilty by reason of insanity.
Michael, you took to Twitter earlier today and you tweeted out something that you referenced here in your answer a second ago. Here's what you wrote. My father did more than say the Lord's Prayer. He lived it in forgiving John Hinckley Jr. Maybe we should do the same. Just one quick question, Michael. You hear that it is possible to forgive but not forget. Do you understand where some people come from with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. But, as my father taught me, is if you want to live with anger all of your life, you're going to be very unhappy. That you've really got to learn to forgive and get on with your life and go forward instead of looking back and being angry all the time. I think my father was able to accomplish so much of what he did because he never was angry. Now, Nancy used to stay up at night and eat bananas in bed when people were saying things about my father, but it never bothered my father at all. And I think it took me a long time to learn that from my father, and I think I've been a better person because of it. So that's why I tweeted that today, to give you insight into what Ronald Reagan, what my father would be saying and what he would be doing with the same kind of information. But I do understand why people are upset. And
you also understand that those in the Secret Service are charged with protecting presidential candidates, and we saw the Secret Service...
And their children.
And that's very true, so you knew that firsthand. Let's welcome in a former Secret Service agent, Dan Bongino. He joins us via Skype. Dan's also a former New York police officer, currently running for Congress in Florida. He is the author of the book, The Fight, a Secret Service agent's inside account of security failings and the political machine. Dan, your reaction to the news that John Hinckley will be released?
Yeah, very disturbing. There's no question about it that these people can pose a lifetime threat to protectees, whether it be Barack Obama or whoever might inhabit the White House. And one of the things we need to consider here is, in my experience as a Secret Service agent, listen, these psychologists and psychiatrists are giving you a medical opinion, but it's an opinion. We can't assume that the clinical settings that Hinckley was in that were very controlled, where the medicine was given at a very specific time every day and the environment was controlled, are going to apply when he's released. I think this was a very bad decision. And again, in my experience as a Secret Service agent, having interviewed a number of potential threat cases, this was a really, really bad call.
The day my dad was shot, if I could jump in, Mike Ludi was the head of my detail that day. And I said to Mike, Mike, how in the hell do you allow my father to get shot with all those agents around him? And he said, Michael, we train 24/7 to protect you and, of course, your father and other protectees that we have out there. But the one thing we'll never be able to train enough for are the crazies. And what happened to your dad that day is one of those crazies got through the system.
Dan Bongino, last word on that, 30 seconds. What about the crazies? In your mind, is Hinckley still one of the crazies?
Yeah, he's got a psychological disturbance. I mean, it was an attempted murder of the President of the United States, but it was an attempted murder of a human being meant to inspire his, Jodie Foster, who he was obsessed with. Yeah, I don't think this is I think this was a really bad decision, and sadly, it may not be the last we hear of this man. Well, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, we hope so too. Dan Bongino via Skype tonight from Florida. Michael Reagan via telephone, always available on Twitter at Reagan World, and author of the great new book, Lessons My Father Taught Me. If you want to pick up your own copy of that book, it's available online and in bookstores everywhere. So that's something you'll want to do. And don't forget about Dan Bongino's book either. He has a lot to say, and we thank both of those gentlemen for being here. Well, the Democratic convention continues apace, and one interested observer is John Sununu. Sean Gizzi will join us live from the convention also when we come back.